Perfect, 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 perfect. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is CJ here, back with another movie review. This time, we are going to be talking about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Um, there's something to be said about the nature of movie and television franchises, where when you exist for a long enough time, you get to a point where you try to, tie in the things of the past into the present movie. We saw it. You know, there's a show that I watched, Scrubs, where in the later seasons there's callbacks to the first couple of seasons of the show, and it's done in such a way that it just works because we've watched these characters grow over the years, right? And we see how their decisions in the past affects what they do in the future. We even see it in the MCU. Like, when you watch Endgame, the whole crux of Infinity War and Endgame was based on decisions that the characters that we've watched in all these movies affected what's currently happening to them, right? Even in the Fast series, despite how bizarre it got in terms of trying to tie in stuff from previous films, same situation. The Mission Impossible films, especially The Final Reckoning, I would say it does a great job of doing callbacks to previous films. And if you remember Dead Reckoning, the core of Dead Reckoning was that Ethan Hunt was facing off against this thing called the Entity. It's pretty much an artificial intelligence that pretty much more or less wants to take over the world and pretty much destroy it because they don't trust people to do the job of bringing about peace, and they just see people as destructive creatures, which, I mean, as human beings, we are. So last we checked with Ethan Hunt, he had took the key that belonged to a sub from Isai Morales, his character, who was working with the entity. And the key to the sub is part of the big plot of Dead Reckoning, where essentially Ethan has to find a way to pretty much take out the entity and take it out of commission. And one of the things about Tom Cruise, especially with the Mission Impossible franchise, is that every Mission Impossible movie feels like a challenge for him to just top the previous Mission Impossible movie. Whether it's, the story, especially on the action front, you know, it's always a case of what is Tom Cruise going to do this time and stuff, right? The Final Reckoning, Tom Cruise really goes for it in terms of just doing some out there set pieces. Ethan Hunt and even the characters in the film, they remark on this, is that Ethan Hunt is always doing huge gambles that puts everybody in fucking danger, but he eventually overcomes those huge obstacles in order to save the world. And not everybody is really gung ho on that, on the way he does things, because it's such huge swings. And granted, the way Ethan Hunt operates, we as the audience know it's going to work, but those characters in the movie just feel it's too big of a gamble. But because he has such a high batting average of success in, overcoming the odds and all those endeavors, in the Final Reckoning, everybody gets to a point of first denying him, but then eventually like, all right, Ethan Hunt can do this. Cool. So basically, what we have is a situation where Ethan Hunt has to save the entire world again. And that involves him going around the world. It involves, him having to, get into a sub to get access to the syncing sub that had the entities, algorithm in it and stuff. It's a lot of stuff happening. And I will give the movie credit in the fact that it does a pretty admirable job of explaining what Ethan Hunt has to do. And it's mainly through a lot of the characters that help out Ethan Hunt over the course of the film. And the reactions to the crazy shit that Hunt does, it's amazing watching the other characters, whether it's Angela Bassett, as the president, and some of the other people from around the country, generals and stuff, reacting to this like, this is crazy. How the hell is he doing this? But again, as the audience, you can't help but just laugh at the absurdity of it all. But even with the absurdity, even with all the crazy, stuff that this movie does, you're engaged with it, no matter how over the top and no matter how ridiculous it is. And I think that's credit to just how Tom Cruise and the writers of this film have done a really significant job of keeping the focus on it. Now, this is a long movie. It's pretty much it clocks in close to pretty much 3 hours, about 2 hours, 45-minute movie. But it, like I said, just the overall, just from beginning, middle, and end, you're just at the edge of your seat, just seeing what the hell is happening. It's like every action set piece, everything that Hunt does and his team has to go through and stuff. You're just like, man, how is he going to get through it? Ethan Hunt doing his usual running, and trust me, the things that you see in the trailer, that's just the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, I would say for my money, I will say this: the idea of the premise of it, where Ethan Hunt has to go after the entity, which is pretty much a rogue artificial intelligence, right? In this era where we're seeing the conversation surrounding AI, right? The entity represents what people think AI is, or at least the Chat GPT and all that stuff, even though honestly, at the end of the day, that stuff is nowhere near what the entity is. It can get there, but it's nowhere near that. And I think there is a surrealness to it in the concept of the entity of itself, especially when you see Ethan and Isai's characters interact with it and stuff, Gabriel. And you see how just the entity sowing seeds of just anxiety and stress and anger and all that and stuff. It works. It really works, and it's kind of crazy when you see it. So I'll say this: definitely go see this film. It's worth your money. I know this is short, but to me, to go into it would require just spoiling stuff. I would say the cinematography is on fucking point. Everything from the set pieces and stuff. There's a set piece where Ethan is on a plane, and just the way that the way it's filmed, it captures the the surreal of oh shit, he's on a plane. How high he is on the plane, and just the danger that comes with that. It's really great. Everything about this film, just the action, the set pieces, and everything is filmed in such a way that it really encompasses the danger and just the chaos that is happening and stuff, and it's really good. Music is the usual stuff. But like I said, everybody plays their part, plays their role, and is phenomenal. And by the time you get to the end of the film, there is a huge measure of satisfaction to it. Kind of similar to John Wick 4, in the sense that you're on this big roller coaster ride, and when you get to your end, you're like, this is crazy, but I love it. So with that in mind, definitely go check out Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. You won't regret it. That in mind, catch you guys later. Peace.
That boy is Benny Hanna.